Hello, I hope everyone's okay. This is another video as part of my drone behind the scenes where we take you through some of the productions I've worked on, so definitely subscribe and consider sticking around if you like drone behind the scenes or job walkthroughs. So with this job I worked on BBC Ambulance, which was an amazing experience really. I'll talk about the planning process, on-set process and how I was able to capture all these shots and what it's like to work as a drone pilot in TV. So I set off for Newcastle and I went by train. Funny enough, my car wasn't working, and that's quite a common theme if you look at my other behind the scenes video from working with Channel 4, and I'm quite unlucky with cars, so I just went by train and it was pretty cool. While on the train I was practicing my FPV skills using a game called Uncrashed. This is available for PC, and what's really cool is you can literally plug in your controller and you can go on a variety of different maps. These maps include racetracks, deserts and all other sorts of things, and it's just really cool, and you can practice and before you look like a fool and crash into the car, which is what I did there. I have a video planned where I'm going to walk through the best simulators for drone flying, and definitely let me know in the comments if you want to see that in the near future. There's some apps that you can get that you can go on your phone and you can even use that as a flight simulator, so it's pretty cool.
Good afternoon and very warm welcome to customers joining this service. This is the 1247 cross-country service to Newcastle.
To give everyone a quick idea of the paperwork that goes into a production like this, there was a 10-page risk assessment, which was very long but very important. And also you have to do a pre-flight survey, obviously the risk assessment, the on-site survey, make sure that you have all the insurance in place. I have a 10 million liability insurance. Make sure you check your NOTEMs, which is a notice to airmen, so that you can be aware of any problems with flying in that particular area or anything to be aware of, as well as maintaining your flight logs and all the relevant documentation. I'm thinking about doing a video based on another recent BBC production which goes into the paperwork and what's expected. It's not the most interesting topic, I will admit, but anyone wanting to get into drone, it's really important to understand how to complete this paperwork to a professional standard, because it will help you to set you aside from other people when pitching for jobs, that you are competent and can do the paperwork. So let me know if you want that. Before the job I had a walk around Newcastle, and it's got some amazing sights. You can see here I got some shots of St James's Park and some of the other areas. It's something I definitely recommend before a drone job or anything like that. Get some shots of the area, because you never know, they could be useful for stock sites, and even the production might want to use them or things like that. I was staying at a really nice hotel called Rooms in Newcastle, and I'm going to give you a quick tour of it in a second. So I've just arrived in Newcastle for a BBC shoot for Ambulance, and I'm really excited, and just going to give you a mini room tour. We have our drones here to start off with, our Mavic 3. And also our FPV drone, just as a backup really. We have our bathroom, which is pretty cool, and a really nice double bed with nice practical lighting, TV, and even a mini kitchen. But I'll be ordering McDonald's probably, so I won't need that. But yeah, I'm really excited for this, and I can't wait to show you more. We arrived at an ambulance/fire station to get the first shots. One thing I'd recommend to anyone shooting any drone related stuff is to capture as many angles as possible really. I pretty much captured about 200 ambulance shots pretty much, but it just gives the editor and producer and that sort of thing, you know, the most amount of shots possible. And one important tip for people when flying their drone, and this was particularly highlighted in the GVC course as well, and just it might be common sense, but it's really important. If you don't feel well, or if you feel a bit dizzy, you need to stop flying. When I was filming this, I can be quite sensitive to the sun, and when the sun came out it was an amazing feeling, but actually it made me feel a bit dizzy, so I stopped, and then obviously when I felt a bit better carried on. But I would definitely recommend, if you're flying a drone, if you feel a bit dizzy or you feel a bit fatigued or whatever, it's definitely not a good idea. You don't want to be crashing into something. When most people do a drone job, they think about capturing footage, but actually one quick thing to mention is I highly recommend getting some production stills on your drone and shooting in RAW, just because this can be so useful for any cover art or any social media content for that particular show. The footage was shot in Rec 709, which is basically standard colour space, which is what the production wanted. But for a few particular shots, we shot in log, just because when you shoot in log, if it's very high dynamic range in terms of you want to protect the highlights in terms of your sky and the shadows for the sunset shots, we did that. And basically I've got a video here and it talks about how your image can be manipulated in post-production, so you can take those principles on set into the shooting so that you can know how your shots can look in post-production. Most of the shots were filmed in manual mode just because you can put the drone exactly where you want, but for a few particular shots, DJI quick shot modes and active track were used to track around the building, just so you can get that perfect circling effect. One thing to bear in mind is when you use these modes, the drone is effectively an autopilot. In a sense, it won't be able to detect obstacles, so you need to make sure you're flying well above the tallest obstacle, so if you have any problems, it won't hit it. This next part of the shoot was a night shoot of the hospital, and shooting at night can actually have a lot of implications, and you need to be very, very careful with this. I highly recommend, well, it's actually compulsory really, to do an on-site and pre-site survey of the area. And also it's much preferred if you can visit the area in the daylight beforehand, just because you can have a look around and you can sense the general area, just because at night you might not see a particular obstacle and at day it might be quite obvious, so you can definitely point that out. You have to have lights attached to your drone at night for flying. The Mavic 3 Pro was the drone that was chosen for this shoot just because it has two cameras on it, so basically it has a telephoto and a normal wide. It allows me to get these really close-up shots to the ambulances without being as close as you'd think, which is really useful. And definitely check out the Mavic 3 review on my channel if you haven't already. And also, when using the Mavic 3 in the telephoto mode, with the new firmware update that's come out, you can actually set manual settings for the telephoto mode, which is actually really useful because you want to keep the ISO as low as possible because it's a smaller sensor. Overall, I'm really happy with everything that was captured for the production, and we wrapped at about 12 o'clock, which is quite late, and then I headed back to Barnsley. I want to say a massive thank you for the opportunity to capture these shots for the TV show, and definitely check out Ambulance on BBC, and definitely consider subscribing if you like drone behind the scenes or that sort of stuff. And if you've got any suggestions for what type of content you want me to produce, definitely let me know, or just any questions in general, I'll be happy to help. Thank you everyone.